So, welcome to Ossiana Talks to People. Um, right now we have my best friend Lasha. She is a former adult film star turned media personality,
Mhm.
and I decided that she would be an amazing guest to have on because we have two major pop culture things happening. First off, yes, I am wearing grills because I wanted to play up the vampire thing. It did not work out as well as I thought, so I'll probably be removing these, but this actually is relevant to what we're talking about today. First, Bill Clinton managed to get into another sex scandal in the Oval Office, and he hasn't been president for like 20 years. Um, the other thing is, we're gonna talk a little bit about the death of hip hop. So, first, let's talk a little bit about the Epstein leak, because I went over it this morning, but because I accidentally slipped out my ex's name, I didn't feel comfortable publishing it. Let's talk a little bit about the whole Clinton thing. There
Well, do
has
you
been
really do you wanna start with that since you have the grills in, or do you wanna take the grills out while we talk about that? And then you can put the grills back in for the hip hop conversation because I feel like we're missing a really an awesome opportunity here.
okay, I'll put these back in and let's start with the death of hip hop.
Okay.
Uh, so as many of you guys know, I've really been into hip hop culture for a very long time. I 100%, you know, I love the five elements of hip hop. I was a break dancer. I have graffiti artist friends. Like, I love the lyrical aspect of it. And for the first time in, I'd say about 20, 30 years, there has not been a rap music or hip hop music entry on the top tens.
It's and I have a love-hate relationship with hip hop. You know, when hip hop first started, I was really in my internalized racism era. I was super goth and super metal. I didn't want anything to do with black culture whatsoever. And so I really didn't step into it until like hardcore until like my late 20s, early 30s. And one of the reasons why I was just so against hip hop was just because of how, first of all, I hadn't found the right artist yet. So that was my main thing. I hadn't found the right artist that spoke to me. The second thing is I just didn't like the misogyny behind it. I didn't like how
Mhm,
women were spoken to. Again, but as I started to get a little older, I realized like hip hop is so vast, so broad,
mhm.
and the people that I like probably aren't even I mean they're not even really they're popular, they're like the greatest artists of all time, but they're not around much these days.
Well, for me, like you and I, we both were slightly late adopters in our own ways.
Mhm.
Because when I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to listen to rap.
Same.
I've, yeah, if you've ever grown up in a very white culture heavy area, like Lasha and I both have, we kind of both trauma bonded about that in different ways. Um, Rap was like public enemy number one when it came to the kids. It'd be like, look at
Unintended.
the children. Mm-hmm.
Pun totally intended. And for me, it was religious. You know, I grew up in a cult, so I couldn't listen to any music. Like I couldn't even really listen to Prince, and that was like that was my guy, even though I was
Mm-hmm.
young, I knew who he was and I wanted to listen to that kind of music and I was not allowed to listen to that kind of music. So, and then on top of it being religious, the religion itself, it was predominantly white. So there was no exposure to any of that at the time until I was a grown age and I could really start like doing my own shit.
I was similar. I grew up adjacent to Moonies, so I'm sorry, I can't talk with these. um, but
Understandable.
I grew up adjacent to Moonies, which meant that in the particularly strict line of thinking that my friend's mom had, we weren't actually able to listen to any music that was made after about 1980, 1970. So we were Beatles, Led Zeppelin, all that was fine, but hip hop, absolutely not. It also, I grew up in a very, very all-white neighborhood, and parents viewed hip hop as like Satan incarnate there. So it actually took me a while to actually get exposed to the culture, to really learn about it. Because when I first saw it in high school, I was kind of fascinated by it. But at the same time, I felt like if I partook in it, I was doing wrong. You know what I mean?
Right. Mhm.
So it's one of those things where both of us are kind of late adopters. And, hip hop was always like this kind of weird. Of, EG says, I've got five on it. Like,
Send it here. I'll take it.
yeah, we do love our money.
Yes.
But
Mm.
hip hop was always like this thing in the background where you could just see how it's like affecting people. You could see how like all these people were inspired by Eminem, by DMX. We saw all this stuff like as part of the cultural zeitgeist. And by the time that we got in, we are like, oh yeah, this actually does speak to me.
Mhm. Yeah, it was, it's funny because when I become immersed in a culture, like when I finally decided that it was time for me to start listening to hip hop, I started at the beginning, Africa Bambaataa, all those guys, everybody from the 80s, the early 90s, and into the early aughts was, the area that I concentrated on. And thankfully during the 90s, I realized that there was conscious hip hop, like
Mhm.
Q-Tip, Tribe Called Quest. There was, Most Def, there were artists that I could actually like agree with and listen to, and I was becoming super political. So NWA, of course, I had to listen to them, and all like I had to do a deep dive, and because I had let it go for so long. And that's how I realized, hip hop can do amazing things. And hip hop is also more than just hip hop is rap, and rap is I mean there's more than just there's hip
Yeah.
hop and then there's rap, and then I realized, you have to really listen to the artist because every artist has a message.
Mhm.
And nowadays, especially like in the last 10, 15 years, it's just
It's gotten
gone
so bad.
so downhill for me. Like, I can't even as soon as mumble rap started, I knew hip hop for me was about to be over. I can't do something that doesn't make me think. If it doesn't give me metaphor that I need to sit there and dissect for a while, I can't do it. I mean, even Kanye was great. I
Yeah.
just, that
At
kind of,
first. At
yeah.
first. What he's doing now, I don't know what the hell's going on in
That's why
his
I said
brain.
was, but when Donda died, everything was fucked. And I don't think he's ever been great since then. I don't fuck with Drake. Kendrick is my dude. Like, I love him. There will be no death of hip hop if artists like him stay around and stay, even if they have to be underground. But I think another reason why hip hop is dying right now, and I don't think anybody's really talked about this. Not necessarily dying, but hip hop has changed. Hip hop is like another alt right pipeline.
Yeah.
And not many people understand that, especially because it's Black culture, but they also don't understand how conservative and right wing Black people can be when it
Yeah.
comes to what they believe and espouse in, and like their musical interests and things like that. It's based solely on religion
Misogyny.
and yeah, misogyny and patriarchy and capitalism. All three of those things run rampant in hip hop,
Mhm.
and a lot of women are starting to really understand and see it, but a lot of mainstream culture doesn't see it as that. Especially the message and the people that they're trying to reach out to are younger, impressionable young men who they want to be wealthy, they wanna have bitches, and they wanna be in charge, you know what I mean? Like, that's the right wing patriarchy for them. That's like incel territory. Going that route is because most of these men will never be that.
Exactly. Like, I could probably like segue into what happened with Coolio at Exotica because that one was a funny one. But like
Wait,
Coolio,
this year's Exotica?
no, a couple years back. Remember what happened with
Oh,
my husband?
Okay, hold on one second. Is he not able to get in?
Huh?
My Instacart guy
Oh,
is here, and he's telling me that, give me
gotcha.
one second. Can you
So
maybe at the door?
while we're while we're waiting on Lasha, I'll tell you guys a little bit of a story. So I've I've crossed paths with like some really major hip hoppers. I've smoked weed with African Bambaataa in a club in Brooklyn. Um, I don't know if he ever remembers me because I was like 20 years ago, but Coolio played at Exotica before he died.
Uh-huh.
And I was supposed to have an interview with him because that was kind of my shtick for a long time. I would go to Exotica and I'd get an interview. I brought my husband there. My husband had no idea who Coolio was because my husband's really young and he gangs huh? So Gangster's Paradise is one of those like songs where I genuinely think that was a magnum opus among magnum opuses, you know what I mean? Like, it spoke to me in a lot of ways because, well, obviously, Gangster's Paradise is gonna appeal to me for a lot of reasons, which I'm not gonna get into here. I lost a lot of friends to gang violence and stuff like that, so it hits very differently for me. And Coolio gets on the stage. Now, my fellow viewers, if you know about Coolio, he had these little like Tweedledee sprigs coming out of his head, like the
Mhm.
little braids. My husband sees him get on stage. Now, Coolio, whenever he sings Gangster's Paradise, there's often a lot of people who are gang members there, going there as kind of like a way to grief and just like let loose from, you know, what they experienced. It was that kind of thing.
Mhm.
My husband and I are in the front row. I hear my husband go, "Security, get the crackhead off the stage. We're waiting for the talent."
Steven!
And you just like you could hear a pin drop in that audience, and I just slowly turned to him, I'm like
Wow. The microaggressions, Steven. The microaggressions. Ugh.
and Coolio was, like,
He
looking
never
at me, and
he
I'm
he never saw what the Michelle Pfeiffer movie? He never knew.
"No." So,
Right.
I know, and he was just kinda sitting there, and he was like, "What? What did I say?"
Oh my god. If he thinks about that, he must think Flavor Flav is a heroin
So,
addict. Like, I'm
I
just
just kinda, like, look at him, and I'm like, "Babe, before we get shot, shut up,"
uh,
because 'cause I'm, like,
good.
seeing everybody looking at the 2 of us. And,
It's
like,
okay.
some people are reaching into their pockets, like, it was just after, like, a very, very bloody gang war, at least on one coast. So I was just like, "Shut up, smile, look solemn, sing nothing."
Say nothing. Say like, run away. Do the Homer.
Obviously, after the performance, he goes, "Yeah, that was actually pretty good." And Cleo just looks at him like, "Uh-huh, sure." And I was just like, "I really liked your music. I really wanna talk to you." And he just, like, walks away. I was like, "No, don't go."
You poor thing. He's better
But
now, y'all. Just so you know, Steve is not microaggressed anybody in a minute. At least not
he
that I know of.
he
So,
he he genuinely thought that this dude was a crackhead, and I was just like, "Steve, no, no, if he's on the stage, he belongs there. Don't do that."
and even if he was, he will do cocaine. You know what I mean? It's just I can't with this guy. Um,
Yeah. So, like, that's my story about Coolio, but, like, there was definitely a moment in hip hop and rap where it was a very heavily political movement, and it was meant to empower people,
mhm,
and it wasn't just, like, about Black culture for a lot of us. It was actually seeing people making money, showing that, 1, the girls could be sexual, but they could still be badass and fierce in their own way. There was this feeling of, like, just seeing all the different, like, outfits that they'd wear, how colorful they were. It was such a culture shock for my white as vanilla milk toast ass. I was like, goths had the, like, the black and the red, and that was cool, but to see hip hop where they had the neon pinks, the yellows, the greens. Like, they just added so many different layers to their style that it just blew me away.
And what's really funny about um Black culture is Black women have been alternative all through the 80s, the 90s. Remember the
Mhm.
hairstyles with the different colors and all the bap kind of stuff? And
The
we,
weaves.
yeah, we've always had that alternative look. I mean, bitches were going around wearing blue hair, pink
Hmm.
hair, yellow hair. Foxy Brown was wearing, I mean, Foxy and Lil Kim were wearing red wigs, all sorts of stuff to make them look different. And we have been pulling that style off for a long time. So alternative subculture is nothing new to hip hop. However, now hip hop is turned into like the same kind of woman, the same kind of look, the same kind of slick styles, the same kind of like body type, the same kind of like overtly sexual nature. Like it hasn't, when it comes to female rap that's popular, it hasn't evolved past sexuality and the male gaze. So many, there's a lot of artists that don't even get talked about, that especially female artists that are fucking amazing when it comes to hip hop. Snow the Product, an amazing Mexican, rapper out of California. She is phenomenal. There's so many and women who were
Hmm.
writers for other hip hop artists, and they don't get the credit, that they deserve. And it's and now with white supremacy on the rise, the phase out of hip hop,
Pardon me.
no, you're good. The phase out of hip hop is becoming more and more apparent. It's becoming like this thing that's a dog whistle for like poor Black people, and not a vehicle for inspiration.
Empowerment.
Yeah, or power. You know what I mean? Like, and like I say, with the alt-right pipeline, all it's doing is creating a new and a subclass of human. But you'll notice that once someone in hip hop becomes great, they automatically have these
A pivot to the right.
yeah, fucked up, right wing things. Like look at Snoop. Like we've always known that
Uh,
Snoop was,
that's
he
whack.
he's always he was always like against the grain. He always was sexually explicit and all that stuff. And then now to come out and be like, I can't understand why I need to be, that my grandson needs to be susceptible to two lesbians. Nigga, you had orgies. How you gonna
We did
explain
go
what
MAGA,
you
yes, EG.
Right. How did you how can you explain what you did on this shoulder and then question what you are seeing on this shoulder? You haven't had to have those conversations with your child yet, but that's your own prejudice, and that's just another thing that comes along with it. You look at video vixens like Amber Rose, like being a Trump
B was
supporter.
a nightmare.
It's just these people are more that the thing is that capitalism is a vehicle for racism, sexism, patriarchy, and all that shit. But hip hop, the main message was making money, getting that money, and fuck whatever else. Because when you have enough money, you don't have to worry about the rules. You can pay to get yourself out of it, like Diddy. You know what I mean? Like you can pay to get that shit expunged and looked at a different way. Um, but then you find that Diddy is partying with Epstein and partying with Trump and partying with all these other motherfuckers. So it's not that big of a jump to see. It's disappointing as fuck. It's
It's
sad.
sad.
Just like white women and women in general voting against their own self-interest when, being voting for subjugation.
Like, while we're on that topic, let's talk a little bit about what's happening with Ice Spice and a lot of other rappers who are female. And they're often women of color. Not always, but they're often women of color. And I've noticed that, like, specifically, like, Ice Spice really, like, stood out to me as one. And there was I think it was Sexy Red.
What did they do?
Um,
These are high
well,
yellow women too, like half like
yeah.
racially ambiguous Black women.
Well, Ice Spice, she sticks out in my mind as one of the most self-loathing black women I've ever seen. Make it big. Like like she made a song that was racist against black people, like calling them dindus at
I
one
mean,
point. Like,
that's just like what's her fuck? What's the other one? Oh, she was a groiper. She was in groiper chats. What the fuck is that bitch's name? Um, she's my best friend. She's a real bad bitch, got her own money. That bitch.
oh
What is her
no, really?
name? Huh?
Wait a minute, I know who you're talking about. Why do I? Wasn't that Black China?
No, no, it wasn't Black China. Black China's at least tried to remain black. Um, cat, cat. What is it? Is it something cat? Doja Cat.
Doja
That
Cat.
bitch.
Oh wow, yeah.
That bitch. It's women like that that are their proximity to whiteness is what they really want, and they're willing to be a raccoon and shuck and jive for a dollar because they want to be rich. And they don't mind rage baiting in order to get their point across, because Doja Cat was in alt-right rooms growing up. That bitch
Ooh.
was sucking dick. I mean, and I'm someone who is a connoisseur of Caucasian men. I mean, I've been there, done that, I've dated all kinds, you know what I mean? But she's so ingrained in it that it's because that's the part of her that she wants to be. She wishes she was a white woman. She wishes. They all do. They wish that they were white women, and they don't understand like the power that they no, they don't. They do understand the power that they have,
Yeah.
especially now that they're in the public.
Mom made a song in a prison when she was pregnant saying she loved criminals. I forget who that is. I do also want to talk about the other side of the misogyny that I've been seeing in hip hop that's been kind of putting me off with it.
Mm,
I believe that
I can't even see the comments. Let me see. Anytime,
the girl who like I kind of am looking at her and I'm giving her the big side eye aside from like the white supremacist black women, which I don't understand. Like, bro, they like it I don't get these ladies. It's
Girl, they think they're gonna be house slave. You know what I mean? It's like it's a slave mentality. I'd rather be a house slave than a field slave. That kind of shit.
mhm,
You know what I mean? Like the favor from massa is
yeah.
what they're looking for.
No, like, and speaking as somebody who was a slave, I understand how that gets ingrained in you because you start seeing other women as the competition. But the
Mm-hmm.
truth is that at the end of the day, it's not doing you any favors. It's not doing your kids any favors. They don't like you. They will never like you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like
You're
these,
always
like,
going to be the joke. You're the Uncle Ruckus of the group.
yeah,
And they're never going to accept you. They'll accept. I mean, like, it's just like Candace Owens. She's
tokens
getting
get spent.
she's getting the idea now. She's understanding where her place is. She was riding hard for conservatives, and then when her man died, she realized that she was getting cut off, and she was getting cut off because his wife found out they were fucking
Mhm,
and was like, "Oh, not this black bitch, not this bed wench, not any of that stuff. So now let me go fuck with JD Vance and steal
mhm,
him away from his black wife. I mean, his brown wife. You know
yep,
what I mean? Like that. The whole thing is slave politics. The whole
yeah,
thing is just like white supremacy at its finest. I'm gonna take a look at some of the comments because
yeah.
we're missing them.
So like, um, the other type of like weirdly playing into white supremacy, but in a different way. I believe her name is Sexy Red. I'm actually gonna
Mm-hmm.
search her up. And um, at first glance, you would think that she'd be the polar opposite when it comes to this because she does not lighten her skin. She ain't doing the oh, I really like white boys thing. No, she goes the other way where she's trying to be as scavy as humanly possible. She came out with a line of lip glosses, and one of them was called gonorrhea. I don't know about you, but I dead ass,
She's
dead
she's
ass.
a what did we used to call him in the 90s? She's a edgelord.
Yeah, like
Edgelord.
she's definitely an edgelord, but it's like, I'm sorry, man, like, you're not doing women a favor by calling things like I'm actually searching up the names of these lip glosses right now,
And she
and they're
don't
like,
care. She don't
she
care.
doesn't care, she's laughing her way to the bank.
Exactly. And that's one of the things I was watching on TikTok. There was this girl who was talking about this white woman who does these rage bait videos and is like, what we're doing right now is we're desensitizing the public. We're saying the
Mhm,
most egregious things in order to get people desensitized to that stuff. So then it becomes everyday jargon. You know what I mean?
mhm.
And then all it takes is, there's these dissenters and, black people who are like, and it's you. Here's the fucked up part. I believe Sexy Red and all of these other ones that we've been talking about are not Black Americans that were raised in the United States. I'm not sure about Sexy Red, but
Let
I
me
know,
check that
like,
out.
um, so if they are, it's very disheartening. Like that their families from here, they were chattel slavery, descendants and stuff like that. But usually you find that kind of behavior in immigrant Black people
Yeah.
that come from Africa and South Africa and fucking, in the Caribbean and all that. And they chose to come here instead of being kidnapped from where they came from. And they think that, we should just let it go. There is nothing that we're doing too much. And who is it? Amanda Seals, when she did her 20 versus 1, is like, I wish that, you know, African Americans, there's a difference between African American and Black Americans because African Americans and all of that come from outside the United States and came here voluntarily. So do not talk about the struggles of what Black people who have ancestry from chattel slavery here in the United States feel about what's going on because they know the reality. And all you're doing is working as a tool for white supremacy because you want everybody to just get over it. Yeah, okay, let's get over it, but let's acknowledge it first and then get the fuck over it. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
everyone has to acknowledge it. There's got to be something forward from this, and it's one of those things that my community has to deal with on a regular basis, and we really try to and we really try to embrace the whole diaspora of Black people, but it's difficult.
I can't even imagine as a white person. So I actually looked up both Doja Cat and Sexy Red are born in the US. So
Okay.
they're like with Sexy Red, like my issue is not she's not just an edgelord, but like her fandom is known for being much younger. It's the same with like that Lord Skrilla dude who was like 6, 7. Cause like if you actually listen to that song, he's talking about drive-bys, which okay, highly relatable, but you know what I mean? Like it's one of
Yeah,
those things where
highly relatable to who? Think about that.
um
Who is it highly relatable to? Gang members, right? People who are in the inner city. Has he even been in a drive-by? You know what I mean? Like,
actually Lord Skrilla is from the Kensington area of Philadelphia and he had heroin dealing charges when he was 12. So probably.
okay, but the people
Like
who listen to him
the people who
don't.
listen to him don't. And the funny thing is that like that whole 6 7 meme, it now means nothing because they started to make it with like basketball or baseball type thing. So it lost its
Bullshit.
meaning. But the original thing was about a drive by, which okay, once again, it's relatable. It's good to know that you have like songs where you can relate to some of the more messed up stuff in your life.
Mhm.
But when we're talking about Sexy Red and she's like doing all these like lip gloss names like gonorrhea and she's actively talking about, having STDs and stuff like that. Her audience is under 18. No, her audience is like 16. That's how you get girls who end up
Lower.
lower. Yeah.
Mhm.
I didn't want to say it. So,
Lower, bitch, they're grooming the so here's the thing,
yeah.
like, in the Black community, it's really difficult because we don't talk about sexual abuse, especially within the family. We don't talk about it, especially when it's in the family, when it's in our religious circles or anything like that. So Black girls at a very young age, and Black men at the same time, Black males and little boys, are sexualized very early on. They're made to be and feel more mature than they are, because the community puts more of the onus on Black women. I'm starting to lose my train of thought, but the way that Black children are sexualized very early on is abominable, you
Yeah,
know. And and the thing is that we don't. I mean, a lot of the Black culture hasn't been shielding their children from the music that they listen to. It's like, when I was growing up, we had grown folks music, and then we had music that everybody else could listen to. And it's not even just my generation; it's the generations before me, um, and all of that. But the thing is that they're so. And I used to get mad at my brothers about this, like listening to this music that's sexually explicit, that's violent, and all of that, and putting it around, letting your child just absorb it. They're sitting there on their iPad, clicking away, watching Barney on this, and in the background, bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks. Like, what the fuck? Like, can you
yeah,
do that on your own adult time? It's just music. No, it's not just music, my nigga. It's for real.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And this kind of like, adoption of like sex work culture and all that makes it so hard to it
but
makes it so hard to combat against when it comes to Black music and the diaspora of what that looks like. We Black people are the arbiters of so much culture and so much music, that when I see stuff like that, I'm like, we can do better. We can expose our children to better. And if not better, an alternate, an alternate version of it. We can expose them to jazz. We can expose them to hip hop. We can expose them to pop music, and even in different cultures, we can expose them to the music that's there. It's just, there's so much that can be done, but we're so lazy when it comes to the things that are out there, because hip hop is the most dominant culture of the United States, and that's what shaped a lot of our capitalism and things like that. And I mean, hip hop is everywhere.
yeah. And the thing is that prior to, I want to say, 2000, politicians and that stuff, they didn't really observe the power of hip hop.
Hmm.
But now that MAGA's gotten its claws into it, we're seeing people like Forgiato Blue, I think his name was, or Forgiato Red, the one who like did all that, little pump, who ended up at Trump's inauguration. Like, all these rappers, they're getting paid off to be shills for like these people who genuinely want them
Nelly.
for them, which was weird because I always thought that Nelly was too. Well, I thought that Nelly was gay.
I
Um,
mean, gay or not, I mean, our president is is bisexual, it seems. So,
uh-huh.
but the whole thing, like watching, if you watch reality TV, you've seen the Nelly and Ashanti reality show, and he performed for Trump, and
Mhm.
watching him rationalize that shit in time with his wife, and then watching her accept it, it's like, too late, I'm already married to this nigga, so I mean, I'm just gonna have to deal with this. But it could have been a conversation. But it just shows how much, and this is why I kind of don't like this topic, because hip hop is technically a Black culture phenomenon,
Mhm.
and most Black people in the United States will never be as successful or as wealthy as the white majority of people. So let's dangle a carrot in front of them called money, and a
Mhm.
lot of money, in order to put their feelings aside about what this is, in order for us to get their entertainment. When it comes to white supremacy and things like that, there will never be a space where entertainers, athletes, and shucking and jive, people will
Yeah.
not be able to prosper. So they're working the angle, they're working the
They are.
system. and all of that. So I'm trying not to be too mad about it because I realize what they're trying to do, but also I realize the amount of greed that is associated with that because you could have turned that down and still been okay.
Like Childish Gambino's "This Is America," that was a brilliant piece of work. And
Oh,
looking,
get me started on him.
eh?
I am not a fan of Glover. I'm not. He's
Really?
another one of those, but I did like that song.
Yeah.
That was a banger. I did
Like
like that song.
that one actually held a lot of truth to it. I don't know too much about Glover, but I do know that a lot of people seem to be very content with selling their own people up the river for those giant stacks of money. And the thing that really started to get me thinking about the death of hip hop is that people are now starting to talk about hip hop fatigue, where
How? What does that look like?
apparently a lot of listeners who used to be into it, they start to notice one, that they can kind of predict exactly what the topic of the next smash hit hip hop song is going to be. And usually it's the same thing. It's that whole pounding about greed, pounding about women. Like it's the same thing over and over and over again. Because
Yeah.
that's what they're playing on the radio. That's what the old white people want to play on the radio. If they wanted real counterculture, thought-provoking stuff, they have their assortment that they could be choosing from. They're not.
Yeah, because
They're doing that on
the
purpose.
cishet white men, especially the ones in music, know that the most aggressive, assertive, and the most, you know, sensational music. And when I say sensational, I don't mean that in necessarily a good way. I mean that in a sensationalized way, appeals to the audience and gets more attention and makes them more money. If people hate it, they make money. If people love it, they make money. You know, whatever it takes. But it the public eats that shit up. America loves to be angry.
Mhm.
We love a scandal. We love all sorts of shit that we shouldn't love because we don't like our own lives because our own lives are not as exciting, you know. Where this
Mhm.
planet is a fucking worker planet. You know, we were created to mine gold for another fucking planet. You know what I mean? Like that's what we were made for. We are a slave class of humans only produced in order to make money. That's it. And that is our sole existence on this fucking planet to mine gold and make money and have more people around in order to do that. And however we can do that is what we do. So right now, yeah, they may be getting rid of hip hop, but what they're doing, what I'm seeing right now, the trend is going towards Black people and alternative music. Have you noticed
Yep.
all the goth bands that are coming out, all the metal bands that have Black people that are coming out? You know, counterculture is starting to, I mean, I love it, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't trust it.
I understand because like what they did with hip hop in general was kind of like messed up to say the least.
Mhm.
But
Oh, in
like
country, sorry.
yeah, well with country too. But what I've noticed with like the hip hop thing is that it's not just like being able to predict what is going to be on the radio because it's all going to have like the same type of lyrics. And
Mhm,
sometimes it's the same type of beat. And it's gotten to the point where even the women are starting to look all the same.
mhm,
Like they have the same hairstyles, they have the same body type. I remember when we had the miseducation of Lauryn Hill and Missy Elliott. And Missy Elliott, she was not as slender as she is now. She was a thick girl. It blew everyone's minds because she was downright savage with her lyrics. She had like this power to her, this
mhm.
mystique. And I don't see any plus sized women like really killing it because they all want that same wasp style build.
Well, because
But
it's white supremacy, you know,
yeah,
driving behind, the idea of what, um wait, we'll call in the comments.
is
And
Ja Rule MAGA? Let me
and
see. I think he might be. Let me see.
any Black man in hip hop right now, I have a side eye about, especially
Yeah,
anyone
he
that's
is.
popular. Drake especially. I'm not really questioning anybody. I've kind of disassociated from it all. But um when we're talking about especially Black female hip hop artists becoming more homogenized. Like you look at Lizzo, she's lost a lot of weight, right? You look at Missy Elliott's been balancing all of that. But the weight loss thing has always been a white supremacist tool because the bodies that Black women have are not built. We are not meant to be extremely skinny.
Except for
Like
Somalian women. They have like the natural supermodel build there.
yeah,
Like,
that's a white woman thing, and everybody is looking to be as close to blonde-haired, blue-eyed, thin, pale. I mean, that's what they're looking for. Even white women in their own culture have this idea, don't be a white woman with black hair. You know what I mean? Like, because she's not going to be quote unquote as attractive as the blonde. Don't be a white woman with red hair because, bitch, you might be Irish. And we don't fuck with Irish people because Irish people aren't really white anyway. You know what I mean? Like
no,
Italians, white.
bro, we're like the palest fuckers on the planet. If you put me and a bunch
Right.
of Irish people together, you're gonna think that you just saw a pile of snow. But I get
America,
what
I
you're
mean,
saying.
the world is so racist. It's not even funny. Whatever it takes. You know what really pisses me off is that the minority have been blonde haired, blue eyed people, right?
Hmm.
That's been the quote unquote minority. However, the entire world is looking to be that from Latino Hispanic culture. You have white Cubans, you have black Afro Cubans, you have Asian Cubans, and all the other things. But it's like, in order for the Hispanic community to be successful, they have to be of white looking of the white parts
They
of
have
of
they
that
have a saying
ethnicity.
about that, which I found out from my exes,
Hmm.
multiple exes. And Lasha and I, we've had discussions about some of the interesting things either our former hookups have said or my exes have said. So in Latin America, they say improve la raza, improve the race. And that means that if I were to go with a bouquet of flowers to a family throughout South America and be like, hey, I want to marry your son and have a bunch of kids, they would be like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Why? Because of this. They don't even
Yeah,
know me, but
because so many white men over time, when those nations were being colonized, they would go in and the women are the one who had the land. Like the women in the family are the ones that propagated and had the land. So when these white men would come in, they would marry these women in order to become masters of the land.
mhm,
And so that's why, and then those men were lauded over the women because patriarchy. So they became the masters of these estates. So you would have these Cuban women, these Brazilian women, Costa Rican women who came from families of great wealth, but because they married a white man, they became stronger and attached to Britain and Spain and all of that. And that became the white is right kind of
mhm.
ideology that we see in the United States, especially in Miami. We see that you can't be, Afro Cuban or Afro Latina and strive to be anything unless you have white heritage in your blood. And that's why there's so much, colorism in our communities because, even though their ethnicity is Hispanic Latino, if you're not white, then you're not right. It's white Hispanic Latino, then Asian Hispanic Latino, and then Afro Cuban, I mean Afro Hispanic or Latino.
Mhm.
That's what it looks like. And always at the bottom of the barrel. You know what I mean? Like, it's always been a white savior thing when it comes to these discussions.
Yeah, and what is really like kind of decarceration said something interesting. Apparently, in Midwestern states, they'll still play pop singles where there's a rap segment, and they'll cut the rap out.
Y'all, it's so funny because for the last 2 years, it's totally right. The last 2 years, country music has made such a big
Boom.
jump again, and it's not even just regular country music, it's country music with Black people, so, like, Beyoncé started the conversation about country music, right? You'll notice television shows now have, like, Fire Country, Sheriff Country, all those other, like,
Mhm.
these blue collar job shows have country artists. Doesn't matter what the race is, but it has country artists. And that is it's a systematic breakdown of what's acceptable right now. Um and what's palatable for America, for Trump's America, because
It's
country
insane.
music is digestible.
And
It,
the weirdest thing is that like I understand what they mean by rap fatigue and hip hop fatigue because after a while, like noticing all the misogyny, noticing all the push to spend more than than you have, all this stuff, it does affect your mental health. So a lot of people have slowly just dropped away from whatchamacallit, from the whole mental health thing. From
mhm.
the hip hop thing, because sorry, somebody was like calling me and I'm like, but everybody's been kinda, like, dropping out of mainstream hip hop because, well, it's really bad for your mental health, it doesn't matter who it is. And country's been having a boom because all of a sudden, like, it's no longer sexy to be the urban street kid. It's sexy to be the cowboy and the good Christian girl with, like, the boob job,
It's not
which
sexy
that
to be
part.
Black anymore.
Yeah. Like, one of the
It's not sexy to be Black anymore, is what they're basically trying to say, is that, being Black, being ghetto, being part of a culture that we don't understand, and we can't monetize the way that we used to. Now we need something that's more digestible, and the best way to do that is by alienating that in general.
Exactly, and what's interesting is that while a lot of people have started to talk about, like, "Yeah, it's not as hot to do the whole hip hop thing, I wanna be a classy country girl, good Christian veneer."
I want to be demure.
Well, demure, very mindful. I can't even do that without looking absolutely bizarre, it's so alien to me to be demure of anything. Um But, like, let's take a look at the whole spray tanning thing. Now, for those not in the know, I used to be editor-in-chief of a professional magazine for suntanning, which, yes, that did make me a diversity hire because I am, in fact, allergic to daylight.
Ah, she's a vampire, y'all.
No, quite literally.
Yeah, no, I'm not joking. The bitch is a vampire. I'm just saying, if you're into
Yeah,
sci-fi and all that, real life vampire here.
yeah, you've actually seen me have an allergic reaction to it, so
It's not pretty, but it is what it is. It's part of your
so,
journey.
yeah, like, the weird thing about, tanning is that tanning is now on the uprise among conservative women. And it's specifically spray tanning. They don't actually wanna be out in the sun. The tanning beds, they're still not being touched.
So the whole tanning thing is so interesting to me because Coco Chanel is the one who started, the whole
Mhm.
tanning fad, right? She was the one who went to the south of France and she became tan after a summer and people started looking at being tan a as a
Sign
sign
of
of
wealth.
wealth, right? So that whole thing is still so interesting to me because I'm like, you're darkening your skin, you're activating the melanin in your skin so that you can look more wealthy. Because that's what it is in the
Mhm.
internal of it. It's so you can look wealthy, like, you can afford to go to the you can afford to go to Saint-Tropez and the French Riviera for a vacation. This is a sign of wealth. But what they didn't consider was that it's very close to looking like the darker you are, the closer you are to looking like a person of color.
So that brings me to my next point. It's very interesting that I noticed that it's only spray tanning. Tanning beds, they're still fairly verboten, even though a lot of conservatives are now doing it for their quote unquote health. And they've stopped wearing sunscreen because they believe that sunscreen causes cancer. Speaking as somebody who's allergic to daylight, they can get fucked. But
Wait, do you think it's sunscreen that causes cancer instead of
yeah,
sunlight?
yeah. This
Okay.
this vampire is sitting there giving them the side eye. I'm just gonna point that out.
Ugh, I mean,
So I kind of figured out what it is about spray tans that MAGA seems to love so much, and I might be wrong, but I think at least part of it is because, like, even when I've gotten spray tanned, which I found out is actually considered to be a medical preventative procedure for somebody of my illness.
mhm.
Um, I found out that spray tans really don't look natural no matter what you do.
And they come off like makeup.
I know,
I
trust me.
don't get that. Yo, like all the white women who spray tan and then go to a resort and have their spray tan all over the couch, the bed. That's gotta be that's not like period blood. You know what I mean? That's like you get that shit everywhere. I'm nervous to hug a motherfucker when I have makeup on. I'm nervous about that because I don't want to leave a residual stain. But here y'all are leaving a whole ass body print of
Yeah.
self tanner and all or spray tanning. Like, bitch, just wear some fucking body makeup if that's what you're gonna do. Like,
I mean,
I
it
don't get.
depends because it can be a little bit hard to remove. Um, I know this because I've accidentally dyed certain garments of mine brown. Did not look very sexy.
Uh,
Um, yeah, pale as shit. But like the thing is that like most spray tans, people have seen photos of me when I got my first spray tan, and it was really nice to have like a normal human skin color. Like I'm not gonna front, like
oh, I see what you mean. I get it. I mean, you don't. But the thing is
most people aren't as pale as
society
me.
society has made you believe that your skin tone and your complexion means that you're sickly or means that you have no life in you. You know what I mean? But every person is human. If you're walking around this fucking earth, you're fucking alive. And the thing is you can either be the way that white people look at this, right? Is it can be either you're super pale and you're the ideal, or you're hella tanned and you're the ideal. Like there's no the in between, all of those things. But it's like because you're alternative, you're made to feel bad. If you had red hair, you'd be okay,
I've
you
had
know?
red hair in the past, and people are like, "Oh, what a nice Irish girl," and I'm like, "I'm not actually Irish. I'm
Don't want
British."
to make fun of 'em. I'm sorry.
No, but like I'm British. That's kind of like Irish, except like
Mhm.
we're like the more posh version. Yeah, a lot of those stereotypes can be blamed on that jerk Dracula. Don't even get me started, bro. I
I
used
think
to
it
have
depends
like
on where you live
classmates.
too.
Bro, my classmates used to actually bring bulbs of garlic to school, and it did not help that my mom used to like have these little presentations with like my childhood toys involving weaponry, being like, "This is what vampires and like medieval people used to have." And I was just saying, I was like, "Mom, please put away the family swords,
You're
please."
embarrassing me.
Like, I think everybody has those moments where, like, their parents mean well, but it ends up being, like, really not good. Because I mean, who wants to come to school and find, like, a bulb of garlic in their locker, okay? Um, but when I was thinking more about, like, the whole spray tan thing, because spray tanning is mostly, like, a MAGA thing, and, you know I looked at myself in the mirror with a spray tan, and it was one of those moments where I actually got to see what I'd look like if I was able to be healthy and go out in the sun.
You are healthy. Shut the fuck up.
Honey, I piss blood. I'm not sure how healthy that can be for anyone. But
You're
like,
alien. I don't know what is normal for you. You know what I mean? Peeing or urine might be normal. So let's not be too hard on
so
ourselves here.
no, but like for me, like it was a very like eye-opening thing. But I was still aware that I was kind of orange looking.
Hmm.
Like we've seen the photos of me getting the spray tan. I like the way it looks in a weird way because it's so alien to me that I'm like, this is actually a novelty and it's like an alternate version of me,
Hmm.
but it's orange, you know?
I think you should do whatever makes you feel happy. And
So
yeah.
let's get back to what this orangeness is because, like, the orange actually is politically significant and not just because of Trump. The
Stop
orange means that it's actually a low key power flex. And I think that this is subconscious with a lot of MAGA women where they're
it.
showing, look, I actually have to get spray tans because I am so pale. That's a weird way of flaunting their whiteness. It's not
It's a
quite like the
weird flex, but remember I told you that like I feel like capitalism is a vehicle in which capitalism is the most horrible. I mean that's the fucked up part. That is the thing that we have the worst problem with. But because we're such capitalists, the vehicles for white supremacy and racism and all those things are what is under that capitalism umbrella. So right underneath there, all of those things, capitalism, sexism, patriarchy, all that stuff is right underneath the capitalism umbrella, right? So whatever can show that you have a lot of money in order to do leisurely activities or whatever it is what's going to continue to perpetuate white supremacy.
You're right. So let's talk a little bit more about like the whole death of hip hop slash hip hop fatigue. Have you noticed people actually mentioning that hip hop started to harm their mental health because of like what they're hearing on Hot 97 or whatever?
I haven't heard anything about it because it's not in my purview and I don't really give a shit. But what I have seen, and the reason why I don't participate, is because I'm not feeling uplifted. I'm not feeling like I need to do something. I'm not feeling inspired by hip hop in any way, shape, or form. What I'm feeling like, and this is my own fatigue of it, is oh, here's another bitch who wants to show her pussy to the world. Oh, here's another nigga who wants to tell everybody about how much money he has or what kind of life he had before he became a millionaire. You know what I mean? I don't want to look at some 7 to 12 year old, I mean, like some 12 to 14-year-old, like black dude who, found a good producer who knows how to make beats. I can't, I can't, I can't relate to that. I don't have anybody that I can relate to anymore in hip hop because that's not my thing. I'm trying to live my dreams. I'm trying to go for peace. I'm trying to fall in love with someone who respects and protects me. You know, hip hop will turn you off as a black woman, hip hop will turn you off of black men. I'm not trying to be in something that's racially divisive. You know what I mean? And make me want to
That's true.
it is. It's not it's I don't want to be involved with a rap artist. I don't want to date, and then this is another reason why living in LA, right? You have NBA players, you have football players, you have baseball players. All those niggas listen to hip hop. I don't want to date, for me, someone who's trying to elevate their status and be about business and all that, that's just dragging me down. And what most people don't understand is the frequency of music and the things that we listen to affect our brain chemistry.
Mhm.
And if I'm sitting here listening to tones and then listening not just the tones, I'm listening to the tones and then I'm listening to the lyrics and how that affects my brain chemistry is nothing but going to depress me. And I don't want
Yeah.
to be depressed. I'm depressed enough as it is. I don't, the world is against me just being a black woman. I don't need to hear some mumble ass nigga on the fucking radio telling me about how he needs to do this shit and how he needs to, I don't need any of that. What I need is an uplifting message, a fight against the power message, especially right now when we're trying to fight against white supremacy, we're trying to fight against the right wing, we're trying to fight against all that. I don't need something that's going to delve me down deeper into any of that. And for some people who hear that, they talk about like, oh, you don't like being black. Nigga, no, 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 no. I used to be anti-race. I mean, uh I used to have self-inflicted like racism. I used to have that. I know what it's like to have pride in being a black woman. I'm not trying to run from my blackness like I used to. What I'm trying to do is elevate myself because as a black woman, I am high above the kind of black woman I am. I'm high above what you're talking about right now. I don't relate to you. I don't understand you. And I'm not trying to. What I'm trying to do is better myself, better my family, and make it so that like I don't have time for the bullshit. And this music
Exactly.
right now is about the bullshit.
Exactly. And like while we're on like the topic of bullshit, can we please talk about Bill Clinton getting a BJ from Donald Trump and the email
Yeah!
confirming that there are photos of that?
I want
So,
to see him. I want to see Big Donnie giving Bubba a blowjob because I like gay porn. Um,
honey, I don't want to watch Lemon Party version 2.0, okay?
I,
Like,
just because I'm weird, I want to see it because I know. So one of my friends on Facebook was like, "I don't believe it. I don't believe that Clinton would allow him to do that." I'm like, "Yes, he would. Yes, Clinton would, because Clinton is a narcissist, and Bill would have let that nigga try, even if it was a frat boy prank, he would let him do it because and Trump is weaselly.
he
He's
is.
He's such a weaselly little bitch. And he wants to be in everyone's good favor. And he wants to prove that he's just as masculine as everyone else. No, the way he talked about Arnold Palmer, the way he conducts himself sexually around people. I mean, he had a whole video with Rudy Giuliani where Giuliani was a fucking drag queen in the fucking video. And he motorboated that bitch in drag. Okay. I mean, after licking his neck after a fragrance was, stop it. I believe all of it. And I believe that Trump would get on his knees for that. And that's why he fucking hated Hillary so much. That's why he wanted to lock her up because
The
he thought
one
that
is
Clinton
mine.
was he thought that Clinton was a man. If you notice during all of that, he never said shit about Bill.
Yeah.
Not a disparaging word. Not a he was a bad president. No, it was all about Hillary, and it's giving gay man fatigue over women who have the men that they want. It's giving but butch queen realness. That's what it's giving to me.
Like now looking back at everything, I said this before, but it makes so much sense. Everything that he was doing, it was like one of those catty women who was like, dude, you're trying to take my man. And
Yes.
it makes so much more sense. And I feel like I should have picked up on that, but I have the world's worst gaydar.
He's
But
such a
like,
queen. He's such a queen. And he demonstrates that now. Going after Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was his
oh,
biggest fucking supporter, right? But because that bitch wants to question the Epstein files, now all of a sudden he has issues with that. No, allegedly. I'm gonna say that all night because I don't want us getting sued by this motherfucker, and I do not need Secret Service on my doorstep. Um, but I believe it. I believe it.
I I see it. Yeah, like not for nothing, but everything about this is so fishy. And the thing is that it still makes sense though. Like,
Decarceration, I believe you and I see you and all that. It is hilarious. I'm sorry, we're not paying attention to these comments, and we need to be paying attention to these
no,
comments.
I've been reading them.
Now you would be
Donald
willing
Trump
to
is
go down on
actually
anyone.
Ivanka Trump's mother. I
Yo,
could totally see this.
he would be willing to go down on anyone. He wanted to go. I'm sure he tried to go down on Putin. I'm sure he did. If
Putin
not
wouldn't
Kim
like
Jong
that.
Un, I'm yo. He is a man who loves men in power. That is who he is. He wants someone like his father. He has daddy issues.
More
He
than
has
me.
daddy issues more than
No, but for real, like Donald Trump is one of those guys who like one of the commenters in my last live, they said that sex for him is about power, and I absolutely believe it. And if you look at like the clips of Donald Trump like hanging out with the Clintons pre 2016, they were on very good terms, like suspiciously good. I
isn't
want to
there,
say, hmm?
isn't there a picture of Donald, Monica
Grabbing.
Lewinsky, Bill, and Hillary
I
together?
I haven't seen the Bill and Hillary one, but I know that Donald has definitely grabbed Bill's junk quite a bit.
He loves his junk. I would love his junk too. I hear that he's a pretty big man. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a size queen. I love a big fat white man dick. Like,
So
I
on.
do. Because it's out of the ordinary. So I would be amazed too. The way he talked about Arnold Palmer, girl,
Like I'm just gonna point out that like for me, Bill Clinton just doesn't do it, but apparently from everyone in the Oval Office, everyone wanted to bang Bill Clinton. Every
yes, I would have
which
banged
is
it too.
am I the only one who thinks that he looks like Chuck E. Cheese and can't get into that?
I would have done it. I would have been happy to do it. I
Like
love Monica. I would have been like, girl, like, how can we share this
all
thing
yours.
together? I'm down. Yo, Hillary is the OG. Hillary is the one who tamed that frat boy thing. And I feel like the only reason it would have happened is because of like a frat boy kind of situation. And I feel like the only reason it would have happened is because Bill would have had any kind of power over Trump. You know, Trump was just a businessman at that time. There was no designs for anything political. I think that he would have, Trump got in there and he was like, oh my God, I love you. You're such a great businessman. You're now the most powerful man in the United States. And,
I could see
I'm the
it.
most powerful man in real estate. I'd be willing to do this for you. I'd be willing to do this for you just because. And Clinton's like, sure, okay, let's go, homie. It's like when a whole bunch of like seamen go to fucking the strip club and they pay for all their dudes to go into the champagne room with the stripper. They want to watch him go in the room and then they want to watch him come out of the room and laugh at him. It's just a hazing thing. It's like this rich white boy thing. Like I've seen it so many times. And this is why I think that, at first I thought he was only trying to do this because he was only trying to like kill the Epstein files because he didn't want to be exposed as a pedophile.
Yeah.
Now I think that he doesn't give a shit about the women whatsoever. He just didn't want anyone to know that he was blowing other men during the whole thing. We have our first LGBTQIA closeted representative and president.
Well, I mean, there were always rumors about Abraham Lincoln because he
Mm.
had that one bestie who he slept in the same bed with, which I'm like,
In those times, do we have to share a bed? When you are the president of the United States. But Lincoln was also partially black, so he was hiding a lot of things.
yeah,
I'm gonna send you the TikTok that I found out about Lincoln and his Appalachian heritage, which is biracial. I mean,
Melungeon.
he's triracial, but that thing is also African descentive. About it is like dark hair, light eyes. That dark hair, light
Hmm.
eyes thing is an Appalachian trait,
Hmm.
which is also an African trait.
And like while we're on that topic, like I feel so bad for Hillary because literally everyone was getting with her husband except for her.
I don't feel bad for her. I don't feel bad for her at all. Nope. Mm-mm. She's probably getting other with other women. She was probably his beard. But I'm not saying that Clinton was gay. You know, they probably knew what other people were doing. And in when you get that high and when you find your equal as far as career wise, all that stuff, for me, if I found someone who was as what's the word? Um who had the same kind of ability.
Fantasy?
Yeah, who wanted to like go for the gold, who wanted to be a power couple. If I found someone who was like that, I would I would be like, okay, what are your proclivities? What do I need to know about you? Do I need to be your beard? Are you gay? Like, what do I need to know? How can I hide your secrets in order for us both to succeed to a certain extent? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Politicians are a different animal, but a lot of these relationships are built upon power
They are.
and what that
And
looks like in a couple.
that's actually how traditional marriages used to be. It wasn't about love, it was about power. It was about, actually getting the right wealth together. It was about protecting assets and or expanding assets. And
Yep.
I absolutely
Discarceration said on his name, his dick tastes great. Nah. I mean, it probably did. But go ahead, baby. I'm sorry.
no, like for real though, like that's how traditional marriages used to be. It was an economic contract, not necessarily a love contract.
Yeah.
The idea of marrying for love was actually fairly recent. Like I would say maybe in the past 150 years.
Very new. You know, all of these marriages were built upon building a bigger empire. What that looked like for your country, what that looked like for your people and for your future. And if you could secure the best possible outcome for that marriage, that was all anybody cared about because they didn't care about the mistresses and the misters that were on the side. They didn't care whether the person was gay or not, and I find the most successful of those pairings were when the couples knew about each other,
Mhm.
accepted it, and moved the fuck on and respected what was going on. You know, King Henry had how many? Six wives or more?
Yep.
You know, and but we're not talking about the people he was fucking because when you have that much money, you're always looking for something that's sustaining you in
Mhm.
multiple ways. You're always looking for the most exciting thing. You know, this is one of the reasons why white people have such an affinity for extreme sports because they don't have anything in their world that is
Extreme.
not even extreme, but that's actively going towards their mortality. So the only way they can get that high,
Hi.
that rush, is by doing shit that actively puts their lives in danger, which is why you don't see too many black people going and skydiving. You don't see them swimming with sharks. You don't see them going up to the top of Mount Everest because what's in it for them? We already have our lives in danger by everyday surroundings. You need something that's going to push your limits and make you feel more alive and more human. And when you have access to everything in the world, just because you have enough money, now what you're looking at is a way to make yourself feel alive. And for some people, that's fucking nefarious. That's having sex with children. That's getting involved in the sex ring. That's, trafficking, that's having multiple affairs, doing so many drugs that it puts you in a coma. It's all these things that people are bored and they're trying to find ways to make their life seem more relevant.
Yeah. Like one of the things that I've always kind of had this, I want to say headcanon kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I had to pick up my own DoorDash.
Really fun.
Is when it came to like the Clintons and everything, I always got the feeling that Bill and Hillary, like after a certain point, the people around the Clintons and everyone, like at that strata of high society, they don't really have a way to meet new people. There's that isolationist point where you only have a set number of people you're actually quote unquote allowed to mingle with.
Mhm.
And if you
To an
try to go away from that,
agenda.
yeah, if you go away from that, you know that it's going to be a scandal. I mean, look at what happened with Monica Lewinsky. She was close to that strata. She was, but it annihilated her life because when people found out, and it's like when you're at that high end of society, people are not going to take it nicely when they see you doing things that are quote unquote human. You know what I mean?
The things that they've been subjugated to, because
Yeah.
the world hasn't told them they can have more than one wife or one husband. The world hasn't told them that they can have more than one religious view or they can
Hmm.
do the things that they want to do and still have the same effect. Religion and things like that have subjugated people to the point where they're willing to do whatever they can, excuse me, in order to keep the favor of the general populace around them. And that's what makes it so hard to be truly themselves in any way, shape, or form. And so when you have people that, and honestly, I think that Hillary knew about Monica.
Oh, yeah,
Because
she
I
did.
don't think that Hillary wanted to fuck him at that point, and she wasn't interested in that. She was interested in raising her daughter, and she was interested in maybe her own political aspirations, and I think that they became a couple because they understood what their political aspirations are. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, we live in a country where people's, where we're a monogamous culture,
Hmm.
and we only have the ability to feel and think in one way.
Yeah. And I think that that's what often drives, and I don't mean to like humanize people, but I often get the feeling, sorry, I have to just like drop this and put it near my teapot.
No, right.
But I feel like that's a large part of what's going on with the way that, people end up in these sex rings and the way that people end up constantly getting caught with their pants down. What's up?
Yeah, because that's hilarious. It's like, now we know what that looks like. We know that the shame of people's proclivities is what's entertaining now and makes money.
Mhm.
So now we know we can embarrass them for having the proclivities that they have,
Mhm.
and that's going to make money too, which is why gossip rags exist, which is why people have all these like tell-alls and all that stuff, because you can capitalize off of that. Bro, capitalism is the worst thing that could ever happen, and I feel like I don't want to put capitalism under this like banner and umbrella where everything is bad, because capitalism can be good and productive. I think that
In theory.
in theory, yes, but everything can be good and productive in theory. And as long as people aren't trying to abuse it and are looking at us, the only way we're going to, when I said earlier, like this planet is a slave planet and we're only meant to be here to mine gold, is basically how I feel. But I feel like the only way we're not going to become the most the most amazing reality show of a planet to all the other planets and galaxies and stuff out there is if we let the idea of massive consumption and capitalism go.
All the way. Yeah.
And I don't think we're ever going to be able to do that, because there's always going to be a class of people who are marginalized, who are going to need capitalism in order to build themselves up. Starting with Black people and going down the totem pole, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, all that. Because Black people are the most represented because they're the most downtrodden and the least closest to whiteness. So all of that stuff it's not going to work until we figure out a new way to harness capitalism.
So while we're on the topic of both Bill Clinton and the death of hip hop, you actually brought up a bunch of things that kind of had me thinking. Because you remember like about 10 years ago or so, having a mixed race baby or adopting a black child was seen as like this super trendy thing to do. And like obviously it was very shallow and it was kind of a dumb thing for a lot of people because they didn't actually care about like the child itself, you know?
Wait, say that again? I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said. I was
But the
responding to
I actually can't see the comments right now,
No,
and I
no, no.
don't know.
Say what you were saying again, 'cause I was responding to a comment, but go ahead.
Gotcha. I can't see the chat right now, which is kind of alarming for me, but, um, I was talking about, like, how, like, back in the 2010s and, like, late 2006, a lot of white women would adopt black children as almost like a fashion statement. Like, there were quite a few celebrities who would go to Africa to adopt when they could have just stayed stateside. A lot of
Angelina
kids here.
Jolie.
And
Yep.
the thing is that, like, it became so abundantly clear that half of these celebrities did not actually care about the kids.
And they never honestly, there's some who do. So, like, Angelina Jolie was one of those people with Nick Gwyneth Paltrow, or there was a couple other people who did that in that time, and not only that, but before that, it was Korean and Japanese children that were
Mhm.
being they called and honestly, it's so funny because I was watching Call the Midwife, and
Mhm.
Call the Midwife is a show out of the UK, and it's about women who are midwives, and they deliver all these babies across a 14-year time span. And one of the things that was happening was at a certain time period, there were so many babies that were being paid for
Mhm.
quietly so that they could, they were taking them from Asian women who were on drugs and working in prostitution bars, and they were sex workers, and because they got pregnant they had to get rid of them, or for the one child rule and all of that. We were bringing the kids over here, and so these kids who grew up in the United States were talking about how they were not necessarily, what do they call it for mail order brides, mail order children,
Yeah,
you know, how their families paid for them quietly in order to be brought into their families. And then those children were whitewashed because there was no one around them to
to teach.
explain to them what their heritage was. And when they heard their own language, from, where they come from, and their families trying to get in touch with them after having to abandon them to other families in the United States. They were so afraid of
Yeah,
that language that they didn't want to have anything to do with their heritage.
so I actually have a very grim story about this. As most people know, I have an open adoption. Um, but when like, I found out when I was pregnant about 7.5 months in. And I was like, "Okay, I'm not ready to be a mom. Adoption's gonna be the option," because I couldn't find a clinic in time. So, I started talking to adoption agencies, and they told me, "Oh, yeah, you're white, and there's a 50-50 chance that the biological father is white. Well, you're not gonna have a problem with that because, white children go way, way faster. There's like, you'll be able to get a premium price on your child." I was like, "Excuse me?"
Mhm. If
And
they
they're
could
like, "Yeah."
find white children, they would be more expensive. They can get them from Russia or the Ukraine or something like that, and
Romania.
they would be more socially acceptable than finding an Asian or a Black child or a Mexican child or something like that, and that's where they wanted to do it, but, I don't know what that looks like, and maybe their countries were like, "No, we're not selling our children to you for whatever it is that you want," but I feel like it could have been that way.
Like, it's really weird as a birth mom to have heard, like, how, like, different agencies would talk a little bit about the demand for white babies, and I was just sitting there, I was like, "This is kind of alarming." Like, there are other kids out there who could also use a set of parents.
Right. But also,
But
here's the thing. I okay, so I know what we've done in the past, right? I know what we of Americans have done in the past. But what I look at is I see this is the part where I see an America first kind of thing in my purview is that, we have so many children here in the United States that could use homes and all of those things. They can use opportunities, especially with right wingers who are pro life and all of that. We need to house those children
First.
before we start going to other I don't care what fucking country it is, Africa, Asia, India, I don't fucking care. I think that we should be taking care of the children here in our country first and what that looks like. And I feel like a lot of people want to distance themselves from what's going on in the United States and import internationally so they don't have to deal with a person or a mother or a person, a mother, whatever, who is trying to figure out their life and who could at some point take the child that they abandoned away from their white family or who.
So, legally speaking, once you cede parental rights, you're done. You have no right to them. Like,
No, but you they will always know that that's their child. And at
yeah.
some point it's easy for them to come back and be like, even though you have adopted parents, I'm still your biological parent. And there's two different relationships that go on there. Not saying that either one of those is wrong or bad
All
or
right.
anything like that, but it's just like it's different than
Yeah.
having someone who's in Africa be like, "I'm your mom." Okay, bitch. And you're not going to be here for Christmas. What do you know about the United States? And what do you know about my experience? Oh, and now you're taking care of someone else's white family who's in your country and you're an au pair for them or a nanny for them? Like, how is that going to look? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it becomes easier for someone in that particular instance to be like, okay, well, I can cut that off if I get a child from Seoul, Korea from a mother who was a drug addict.
Yeah. And one of the main arguments I've heard for international adoption is that it's cheaper. And I've heard that a lot. And I'm like, you do realize that the US foster system allows you to adopt after you've fostered them for a certain level of time for literally like 2, 3 thousand. That's
They don't want
not
it.
a, they don't want it.
Mm-mm.
They
They
see
don't want it.
foster children, they assume troubled individuals.
Yeah, they assumed troubled local individuals who can come
Mhm.
back and take away what they need. And it's just easier for them to be with someone outside the country because they have to get a visa. They have to come here. They have to prove, even though they're not a United States citizen, they have to prove that they're worthy of raising the child that they officially tried to get rid of.
Yeah,
They have to climb all these different barriers. And no one in the United States is really going to fight for someone who is not a United States citizen when it comes to getting their child back. Because what they're going to see is someone who is willing to pay and throw away their child to come to the United States for a better opportunity.
exactly. And, while we're on this topic, let's also talk about the new elephant in the room, ICE, and the kids who have been separated from their parents by ICE. Where are those kids
It's
going?
sold into sexual slavery.
That's
They're going to be
one
trafficked.
common thing. They're being trafficked, for lack of a better term. Forced adoption is trafficking.
They're commodities at this point.
Just one moment. I think I have my order from Target for my groceries for tomorrow. But
Yeah, no problem at all. So these kids that are going into that situation right now are going to be looked at as commodities
yeah,
for the United States. These motherfuckers don't give a shit about children. All of these laws that have been built around it, you can see that right now with the effect that they're trying to have with making these children from the ages of 14 and up be authorized. I mean, not even authorized, but it's okay for them to be married off to
Mm-hmm.
other people. And it's funny because these kids, these are girls that they're trying to, they're trying to lower the age of consent to 14, but we don't talk about what's going to happen to the boys. These
Well, I mean,
boys.
wasn't
Mhm.
there that one GOP politician who recently like had a informal adoption of a 14-year-old boy?
The only reason there's any interest in 14-year-old boys is for pedophilia. That's the only reason. Those who have those proclivities, the only reason that these boys are being entered into the conversation is because of pedophilia, because they hold it to these men, they hold the same value as girls. And that's where the meat and potatoes of all of this lies, is 14-year-old girls. Because I swear to you, I fucking swear, even if you made the decisions of marrying a 14-year-old person in law, there's no fucking way that they're going to let two 14-year-olds marry each other. No fucking
They
way.
wouldn't. It's
No,
always a 30-year-old and a 14-year-old or
that's
something like
it.
that.
That's it. They're not going to make it for, a 14-year-old and a 14-year-old to get married. No. What they're going to do is they're going to turn all these little boys into lost boys. If you know anything about Mormonism and you know
Yep.
how to send them off to construction camps and things like that until they come 18, from 14 to 18, they send them out and they send them to construction camps and they live in that society until they become of age. And then they come back to whatever site that they were at, and they choose a 14-year-old child bride, right? So the minimum age that a 14-year-old girl is going to be married to is an 18-year-old boy. Minimum,
Minimum.
minimum.
Yeah, with the Lost Boys of the Mormonism, what you're talking about is like the best case scenario for some of those
Oh,
Lost Boys.
she
Because
could only hope. She could only hope and pray that she would have a ripe 18-year-old man to marry and they can fall in love or whatever. No, at her worst bet, she's going to marry a 48-year-old man.
or higher, but like the Lost Boys of Mormonism, like specifically like the FLDS and stuff like that, in certain branches of Mormonism, because both you and I, like, we kind of survived cults, and you know how that is. Like, I've been really like looking back at my childhood, and I was like, oh wow, I dealt with a lot of messed up stuff because of that. Like,
I'm so
I
glad
was
I left. I'm so
same.
glad I left before I was married off to some dirty old man. I'm so glad
I'm
I left.
I'm glad that you're here too. But like the thing about the Mormon Lost Boys is that in certain parts of FLDS, men have to, and repeat, have to marry at least 3 women in order to get into heaven.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: humans, they don't have an uneven average of men to women. It's pretty much 50-50, maybe 51-49. And the numbers just don't add up. The math ain't mathing. So what happens with a lot of them is if they're deemed to be undesirable by the church leaders, when they hit 18, they pretty much just get dropped off the side of the road and are told not to come back because there's no
Yeah,
wife.
most of them don't even get that opportunity, especially in a family where the head of the household has like 5 wives or more. They want to get rid of the younger men because they don't want to have any competition. And that's why you have so many lost boys. They call them lost boys. That's the reason why you have so many of them that get shipped off. As soon as they become puberty age, like 12 and up, they get shipped off to construction sites because have you been okay? Have you been watching Special Forces? Do you watch Hulu at all?
Nah, I need to
Okay.
though.
Do you know who Cody Brown is from Sister Wives?
Yes. Yes,
Okay, so
100%.
he's on Special Forces this season, right? And he's been one of the guys who's made it through all of most of the brutal tasks of being that. And that's
Yeah.
because when you're in a high controlled cultist religion, the men are used as workhorses no matter what. So they've been working since the age of like 2 or 3. And Cody was one of those people. So he was going to those sites and he was on construction and all of that. And this is one of the businesses that he runs, is making signs for businesses because he knows the ins and outs of that kind of shit. Like that's his bread and butter. So that's how he makes the money that he makes for his kids and all of that. But he had to get conditioned. And Mormonism, especially fundamentalist Mormonism, is one of the, like, Jehovah's Witnesses don't even have a candle to Mormonism. And so
They're
he was
scary.
no, well, no, it's not because they're scared. It's because
No, I said they're scary. They scare me.
oh, I mean, it's because they live for after death. You know what I mean? They're not scared of death. They're not scared of any of that stuff. But Mormons and all the other religions that are out there right now are scared of dying and not being able to attain like earthly values because of how they live their lives. And so they're conditioned to work hard, work like horses. All of the women are conditioned to have as many babies as possible, and the men are conditioned to be workhorses. And so they will send these men off into these work camps, and these work camps will, create the most attractive male version of that religious belief. And then they have to learn how to deal with their wives, their multiple wives. And you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. You need to have at least 3 wives in order to reach the upper echelon of what Mormonism creates, the structure that Mormonism creates in that. And you're all going to be in afterlife together. With Jehovah's Witnesses, we are the bottom of the barrel, and all we're worried about is the system ending and in creating a paradise of life on earth. There is no kind trying to excel above any of that. We're not going to college. All we care about is that Armageddon's coming within the next 5 to 10 years, and it's never happened.
So I'll tell you a little bit about like the Mooney culture, which I grew up around.
Mm.
They have mass weddings where who you marry, you meet on your wedding day. And it's all arranged by a priest. There's about 500 couples per wedding. And it's incredibly arranged. Like I grew up hearing like how great my best friend's wedding is going to be cuz she doesn't have to worry about courtship and guys breaking her heart. And it'd be chosen by like God and the family or whatever. And the end goal for that particular sect of Moonies, it's not even to go to heaven. It's to end communism and unite North and South Korea together. Because the leader of the church is the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, and so is his wife. Well, until they died, I think. And then, like, they're just the true mother and father of all humanity. When I say I grew up in a culty cult, I mean it was a real culty cult. They also,
No, I get it. I totally get it. And
and
it's so fucked up that we had to go through that. You know what I mean? There's some cults that were cooler than ours. You know what I mean? Like
right?
there's some that I mean, honestly, okay, so as far as cults are concerned, I kind of wish I grew up in the Mormon church, not as far as cults go. If I had to choose one, I would have preferred to grow up Scientologist or Mormon, because at least there you were encouraged to be a better version of yourself. And it's so fucked up to think about, but you were encouraged to be a better version of yourself. With Jehovah's Witnesses and things like that, you were encouraged to be just the minimal amount that you could be in order for you to tap into God's strength. And then just if you died before Armageddon came, you were cool, but you were never going to go to heaven. But if you died and you were like a favor, then you would live in paradise on earth. And that's all any of it. Most of us didn't even fucking care about going to heaven because there was only 144,000 of us that would be able to get there. All of us wanted to live on earth for eternity. And that's where it all ends up being. We wanted to live on earth in eternity in God's paradise, whatever that looked like. All I knew is that it didn't insert positions of power for women. So I was just not about the patriarchy.
Mhm. No, like it's interesting because for a brief period of time, I hung out with Christian fundies because
Mhm.
one, it reminded me of my best friend, and two, I was kind of a lost soul in my teenage years. This happened like right before I, you know, had the awful thing happen to me. So one of the things that I remember, and this was when the klaxons really started to go in my brain. Like I think that almost every single person who's experienced a cult, uh, what's the chat saying?
So what I'm looking at right now, what I was going to say and recommend that we do is let's go into the chat and go back a little bit and see what people are saying and then respond to that because we've been having our own conversation for so long.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I mean, because there's 56 people right now.
Oh wow.
Want to make
Yeah.
sure that
I
we
I
are.
can't actually see the chat right now, which is
Oh,
why
okay,
yeah. But
okay. Let me
tell,
see. Let me get fortune
tell me
selling
tell
fast
me if
price
I'm
candy.
wrong, but one of the things I noticed that sent klaxons, this was like the moment where I was like, okay, this really is not for me. Every cult member I feel before they deconstruct, they have that moment where they're like, this is wrong. You know what I mean? Where you're just
Mm-hmm.
like every fiber of your being is like, this is fucked up.
Someone asked, so how come you're not boycotting Target? Nigga, how do you know that we're not boycotting Target?
Because I ordered from Target because that's the closest thing and everything else was closed.
Oh, you're not boycotting Target. I'm boycotting Target. I haven't shopped at Target for 6 years. I was boycotting Target before it was meant to boycott them. I don't fuck around when it comes to boycotting. The only problem I have with boycotting is McDonald's because I love a fucking sandwich from them, but I haven't had a sandwich from them in over 2 years because of what they're doing. So if you want to hold us to the flame for that, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, honestly, I do deserve a little bit of flack for that.
Yeah, because there's
Um,
a lot of people, and I'm not gonna take it easy on her for getting Target. The problem becomes what's available in your area, and then you have to think about, you know, if so there's a lot of people that are like, okay, I'm not going to shop at Aldi or I'm not going to shop at that. You have to figure out like what you're willing to hill to die upon. I'm never going to shop at Target. I'm never going to have Starbucks again. I'm never going to fucking have an Egg McMuffin from McDonald's again. These are the things that I have to deal with as a person of color and all of that because I believe in DEI for whomever it's for, even if for white men, white women, disabled
mhm,
individuals, and all that stuff. But understand that my best friend and I will have these conversations about what that looks like for them
mhm.
and
So,
maybe why they need to do it.
yes, Lasha. But back to what I was saying, like, so tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that every cult member who has deconstructed from their cult, they have that one moment where their entire body screams, "This is wrong. I need to get out." For me, when I saw a friend of mine at the time who was a fundie, like we they fundies and a lot of people on the religious right, they have this obsession with the afterlife. And this is one of those things where there's no other word for it. It's an obsession. She just kind of like looked at me with this like very creepy smile with tears in her eyes. And she was like, "Can't you wait until we are going to heaven? I can't wait." And I could tell that she wanted to cry and she couldn't even muster up the tears.
Was she in that state? Did she grow up in the religion or was she a new convert?
So I think she grew up in it because, like, the Fundy group which I was around was actually active on my university's campus. And, like, 5 years later, I actually saw her and her husband, who was actually the youth pastor, who's a lot older than her. She was pregnant with his kid, and they were walking through the mall, and she still had that same plastic grin on her face where you could tell, like, the lights are on, but what's going on at home, you don't wanna know. And seeing her, like, on the verge of tears like that, talking about how excited she was for the afterlife, that was actually the moment that I was like, "You know what? I can't be around this stuff anymore." So, what are you seeing, Lasha?
I'm just okay. I'm just reading the. I mean, it seemed to be told I don't have enough wives for something makes me feel like an under. Okay, well, I mean, okay, so there's a couple different comments. One of the ones that is resonating with me is the person who's saying that they feel like an underachiever because they don't have enough wives. Having multiple wives is an exercise in balance and empathy. And if you're not ready,
If you're not ready
having
for
more
extra.
huh?
If you're not ready for extra, having one is enough work.
Having one is so much work. And I think that when it comes to polyamory in general, you need to be able to master having a connection with one person. If you can master it and you guys are both solid and all of that, then you can apply that to multiple parts in your life. And it's not something that you can rush. You can't rush that because you have to find someone who's also willing to communicate with you, willing to do the work with you, willing to not come in and try to take over and dictate what's going on in your relationship, willing to find someone who's willing to kind of meld and mesh into the life that you're
Yeah.
providing for them, right? And you also have to take your own um what's the word? You have to remove your own humility from it. You have to be willing to sacrifice for the women that you are trying to not necessarily laud over, but the women that you're trying to or the people
Provide for.
provide for. Yeah, you have a couple different families. You have maybe wives with one, I mean children with one, you have children with another wife, all of that. You have to be able to communicate the relationship between not only the wives, but your own children, because the children are the most important. You can marry as many wives as you want, all of them. And maybe they're independent enough to raise the children the way they want to. But as someone who is a single parent and who would have preferred to have someone who didn't want me to be a single parent, I would have liked to co-parent with someone who is as invested as I was with the children. And I feel like a lot of polyamorous, especially these days, polyamorous relationships don't understand that it's about the kids too. Most of
Yeah.
the men are just like, oh, I need to have all these wives in order to get what I need and to have heavenly fathers um heaven. You know what I mean? But those children may not like or love you. And do you want to be that kind of father? I'm watching
So
Cody Brown go through all that shit right now. And I'm like, nigga, you had all these kids, 19 at the very least, who would have been like, oh, my dad is awesome. But you wanted to give it all to one woman that you married on the outside and you couldn't connect with the others.
it gets even worse with the type of polygamy that you see on reality TV and stuff like that. And I'll be honest, I've seen maybe one or two couples that have actually made polygamy work in a healthy way. Most of the time it falls apart because, like, relationships are a lot of work.
Hmm.
I've been burned out by relationships. and I have like a crazy work ethic. And what people don't realize is that kids are really expensive in America. And when you're poly and you have multiple kids with multiple women, one, custody becomes a nightmare for everything. Two, women do want to actually spend time and experience their husband in a romantic way. Well, sure, you can have the other wives be babysitters, but guess what? They get angry because they're like, hey, when was the last time we did anything? Any whiff of favoritism will cause massive catfights between the women. Then you also have to think about the fact that a lot of these trad women, they don't want to work. They have to deal with 6, 7, 8 kids. They couldn't get a job even if they tried. So where's this money coming from? It has to be the man. For a lot of these guys, they think about like having 6, 7, 8 girlfriends who all know about each other. They're seeing like all these X-rated dreams that they're having where they're all like doing it together and stuff like that. Guess what? That is so far out of reach for the average man. It's not even funny.
Mhm.
Almost every single like I'm not sure if you've watched Amazon's Escaping Polygamy, but it
Yeah.
talks about women who were leaving the FLDS and are helping other girls getting out of arranged marriages and
Mhm.
hi Blitzo. Sorry, my cat has decided to ham.
It's okay. You got a lot of them.
Yeah. But like when it comes to the interviews that they did, the husbands are usually the ones going, "This is a nightmare."
Mhm.
Like half the time the husbands don't even know their kids' names. Do you know how sad that is?
It's
Like,
super sad. They don't have any bonds with their kids. And this is one of the reasons why I continue to watch Sister Wives, because you get to see the blowback of what that looks like between a polygamous father and his children. And I feel so in the beginning, I didn't feel bad for Cody at all because of how misogynistic he was and how much of a quote unquote alpha male that he was trying to be in the whole thing. But then I understood, like, he was never taught how to um how to cultivate a relationship with his wives. What he was taught was, let the wives bring in another person. And so when they had Christine come in, so you had Mary, you had Janelle, and you had Christine, who was the third wife. He had all three of those, right? He had his amount of wives that he needed to get into the upper heavenly gates or whatever, and they would all be together forever. But he never understood and learned how to create a romantic bond with these women, and he was never taught that. So when what's her name, the fourth wife came along, um that girl was able to tap into the things that he needed her to tap into in order to draw him to her. She was able to tap into his spiritualism. She was able to tap into like what it felt like to be a man with all of these people, and she looked at him as like the man who was going, and this is one that she hasn't said it yet, but this is one of the reasons why she feels low about the situation that he lost all of his other wives,
mhm,
because he wasn't able to maintain a relationship with them. Robin, sorry, that's her name.
yeah.
Even though he has Robin as his anchor, and she will always be his anchor, but what she wishes is that he was able to humble himself in front of his other wives and figure out a way to make it work out with them. And he wasn't able to do that. And so
Like,
even though she's still devoted to him as a wife, because that's the commitment she made, he's not able to prove him. He's looked at in her eyes and
as a
mine
failure.
as inferior. Yeah, because he wasn't man enough to rectify the relationships that he already had before she came along, because he didn't have exposure to that. The women who married his father, who came into his life later, those women gave themselves to his dad because they thought that he was rugged and he was sexy and all that. So they didn't have to worry about raising children with him or any of that stuff. They came into this life later on. And so he had 3 wives when he died. And then Cody came along and he wanted the same relationship that his dad had with his wives, but he wasn't able to or willing to and wasn't projected the relationship, and he wasn't modeled the relationship that he needed to have with those women.
Yeah. So don't feel like you're a failure or that you're like, not doing well.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that almost every single guy I've seen who's gone into a serious commitment like polygamy, and like even me, like I've had polyandrous relationships, not marriages, of course, but I've had polyandrous relationships. It's so easy to have that thing turn into your own personal nightmare.
Hmm.
And the thing is that everyone's like, "Yeah, I can handle it." And I'm like, "Can you handle putting food on the table for 3 women at a time? Can you handle getting them enough romantic gifts? Because most guys I know, they can't handle one."
Yep. And that's what they're not able to handle. And that's another reason why we have so many insults right now. It's because they're not being taught how to connect with women. They're being taught through pornography and all those things that women are a vehicle to be used,
Yeah.
not cherished. Women are meant to be vehicles in which a man is served. And if she's not serving you, then she's not worthy. And that is the worst possible take that you can make, because a woman who is cherished and taken care of and secure by the man that she chooses to love, this bitch will kill for, even if she's killing her own child.
Mhm.
That's the part that I don't understand, doesn't equate to a lot of men in this world. Like, women are sometimes more dumb than men, and they will do more for men and love than they will for themselves.
Mhm.
And that's the part that really bothers me, because they're willing to sell their own children for the love of another man.
And you see that a lot in religious circles as well
Mhm.
as extremely conservative circles, because there the women are raised to treat other women like competition.
Yes.
And a lot of the times you just see, like, if a girl comes forward and says, "Hey, this guy's been sexually abusing me," the woman goes, "This is why I can't have anything nice. You tempted him away. You're breaking the illusion." It's like,
What did he do to you? He didn't do that to me. No, bitch, maybe you were uglier than her.
"Oh,
Like,
oh,
like,
damn,
you
did
were
it?"
fatter than her, and he wasn't about to do what he wanted to do to you to her. Like, I hate that argument, because it's like you're pitting one woman against the other.
For
And
something that's not even a prize.
that part.
Exactly. Well, anywho, I just realized that we talked for about 2 hours. So, I'm gonna go to sleep and finish my, dinner thing. Also, I ate way too much tofu, so I really am about to knock out. So, I'll talk to you guys later. Lasha, call me, okay?
All right, baby. I'll talk to you later.
Later. Have a good night, all.